The Clockwork Empire of Tomorrow, short story by JameliaAlicia. Hidden between the corsets and suits of time was technological clockwork built on future resistance, a time-lapse of what should and should not exist. Instead, in the gaps of time, computers, planes, and artificial intelligence shared a breather with the confused and ignorant minds of Victorians. A man named Vincent, in a science lab, measured tubes and bottles with liquids and connected bottles to robots with a mischievous grin at his work. Vincent knew what he was doing. He was coming up with the latest invention, and the invention was called Lab Experiments on Artificial Intelligence. By the next day, newspapers wrote articles about his experiments and made it a national gossip among science societies. Science was making an empire out of its richness, with new inventions and engineering that challenged religious beliefs. Soon, spirituality would leave the rooms of conversations and be replaced with scientific knowledge. The intertwining of both religion and science into a web of ideas and family trees of questions and ambiguity, leaving people's minds to expand and leaving them with questions. However, despite this factual information, we are left with a vision of a futuristic rose, which is depicted in a portrait picture displayed across museums in London and beyond. The debate left answers and silence between the debaters on what side of history the portrait is on. Some argued it was designed for the scientific revolution of the Victorian era. All theories were in the mix, and one answer was the origin of species. The futuristic rose definitely had secrets hidden beneath its metallic petals and buds, contrasted between the wooden stem of the rose that matches the Victorian-era industrial making. With all these ideas sprung the curiosity of Vincent's mind and led his piece to be recognized among art in Europe and beyond. Even the surprisingly new inventions of spaceships crept into the Victorian gossip and bourgeoisie conversations, which led them to question the existence of time. With the divide of gender and class, women started to take the role of men in inventing technological devices such as clairvoyance and time travel, which allowed them to see into the future of the Victorian period. They realized that their beliefs will die out and welcoming of new class, race, and gender will be introduced, which did not sit well with a lot of Victorians and eventually will lead to social divide. One woman in this time had a different way of thinking. She worked alongside future inventors, including the inventor of iPhone in the future, and brought the theory of Apple into the present Victorian period, and allowed the invention to flow through the period being invisible to future's guesses of what's to come. This will be soon past Victorian period. Her name was Francesica Roberts, who was a middle-class Victorian woman who came from Scotland. She was described as being strong-willed and diplomatic and made critical articles about the science inventions. Francesca had the opportunity to time travel into the future with inventors including Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, and Charles Babbage. They were pioneers of the future of technology in science and told many written stories of what is to come in the future. Francesca had conversations with these inventors and felt like she was the only woman of interest in the room, and she used this to her advantage to show her new perception on worldly matters in the Victorian period and the future. Despite the tightening of her corset each day, she persisted with the courage of finding out information and writing continuous articles to influence society's new thinking. Hidden in the suppression of womanhood, Francesca found hope in her truth will be answered. Why are women so suppressed than men? The answer was that women were subjected to being stereotyped by men, and freedom came from a new way of thinking, as opposed to old-fashioned thinking in the present period. Disgusted by the hatred of sexist men, she often spoke to women inventors, including Ada Lovelace and Margaret Knight. These became weekly meetings to unravel the secret woman inventors of the Victorian period. As you know, Vincent and Francesca became close friends, forming a private novel about science and technology in the future and present-day Victorian period. It was named The Clockwork Empire of Tomorrow. Who knows what will happen tomorrow?